Thank you. Senator Pavley?
Yes, thank you very much, and Chair McCarthy, for allowing me to speak briefly on a proposal that I'm asking you to consider as part of the budget process. And this is about the resumption of the APPLE program. And APPLE's an acronym for Assumption Program of Loans and Education. I sat through your presentation regarding the teacher shortage, so I'm not going to repeat any of that, but isn't it alarming when there's about 75% less students going through teacher credentialing programs that are CSU systems than there were just a decade ago? You know, we used to spend up to $80 million a year in teacher recruitment and loan forgiveness programs in our state as recently as 12 years ago. And the last few teachers that have gone through the APPLE program, their last years for loan forgiveness are about over. And we won't be doing anything in our state for dealing with the challenge of loan forgiveness as a way to incentivize people going into the teaching pool. It used to be, in the old days, I'm a CSU graduate and a teacher for 29 years middle school, where that class size average was more like 35 to 40. I'm very jealous of those numbers of 16 or 21 or even 25. But it's far different. Kids going through schools now are faced with huge student loan debt. And I think that's one of the causes, not only the loss of teachers through the recession, where teachers were asked to leave their jobs, and that's why the class size went up, but also because of the student loan debt. Kids going through CSUs these days average about $22,000 in student loan debt. It can be far greater. And you don't have to be a math teacher to figure out that your starting salary at $40,000 or $43,000 a year, it does not make sense to be a teacher incurring even a fifth-year, 5-year student loan debt of $22,000 to $40,000 a year. You can't afford to be a teacher. You're actually counseled out of being a teacher. So there's a combination of factors, but the student loan debt, I think, is a contributing factor, especially for those students, and there are many, just average middle-class family kids wanting to be teachers, but it doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't make sense to do that. So resumption of the APPLE program makes sense to me. Essentially, it targets and complements our investment in schools that have challenging learning circumstances. In exchange for teaching a low-performing school, you can use the local control funding formula, perhaps on school sites, whether they're rural or urban, instead of school districts. In exchange for teaching in those schools for a period of 5 years, your loan forgiveness would occur over a gradual 5-year commitment of time. And I would suggest to you, teachers that stay in a school, and I'm looking at Rocky here, over 3 years and up to 5 years are probably committed teachers for the long haul. They're going to make this a profession of 25 or 30 years, and there's a good chance they'll stay in that particular school. They've made relationships with parents and other teachers in the administration. This is just a smart investment. This program has amazing amount of support through chambers of commerce who get the importance of making sure that we get quality teachers in the classroom, and we can't do it any longer. We can't make it an attractive profession, not only because we keep cutting teachers every time our tax base goes up and down, but on top of that, the student loan debt. Teachers never had student loan debt going through until recently, and it's a burden and a weight that makes them look at other professions. So this particular budget proposal is to look at implementing the APPLE program. It was successful. It's been audited. If there's concerns about the validity of the program and whether it does what it says it's going to do, we have background statistics and information that can be available for you. Linda Darling-Hammond has been supportive of this program. I think it's a high priority, and as a former teacher, I know full well you can put all the books you want and technology in your classroom, but if you don't have a quality teacher, you're never going to get the outcomes you want from the students there. And so it's just about money. It's about investment. It's about priorities. And Chair McCarthy, I'm certainly amenable to coming up with the right number. I know budgets are problematic, especially if you're looking at general fund. I haven't found a way to make this comply with Prop 98. But on the general fund forgiveness program, we're suggesting that if you wanted to resume the Apple program with 800 participants, and these can be in hard-to-fill areas like special ed, where over half the teachers, I heard that presentation, over half of them have emergency credentials and they're teaching in our schools. That's certainly not having a quality teacher in your classroom. But we could look at starting at 800 Apple participants. Its cost would be about $2 million annually as a number that would begin the process of
Down the road, yeah.
down the road.
Okay.
Begin the process. Doesn't resolve all the problems, but I think student loan debt is one of the biggest impediments of people considering going into the teaching field.
Make a comment.
Sure. Mr. Chavez.
Well, I remember your bill. I believe I voted for it, and it's an appropriations, isn't it? Your bill. Where's it at?
Where is that, Chris? I'm looking at him.
Yes.
It's in appropriations. It has bipartisan support. School boards, everyone is supporting this bill. It's just about priorities on money, on a proven program. And if you believe that student loan debt is a contributing factor, I think this is very
Well, I know the Republicans like your vote. In fact, we have support from the caucus,
Yeah.
so anything we can do to help her in that.
Well, most importantly, I think it's important to bring the bill up, and like Senator Pavley and others, many times we do something through a bill and through the budget, but at the end of the day, it's in the budget. And so last year, this committee did support, and I know we have other issues we're going to talk about in a second, but you're right here. We did support increasing, or reauthorizing the Apple program. And I'm not sure if the Senate did. It went to conference committee, and eventually the final package, Department of Finance wasn't keen with it. One thing to note is if you authorize it, you don't pay for it for a couple of years down the road, because people have to finish their teaching credential, and they have to work a year before they actually get the first award. And so there is a commitment
each year
down the
you
road.
work, but this
Yeah.
would be a signal to those people that are maybe freshmen, sophomores, and would say, I could take on that fifth year of debt if I knew that program
Sure.
was out there.
Well, we have a menu of issues that we're looking at considering, and this is one that is on our list, and we'll likely take a look at putting this in our package again this year. So, Mr. O'Donnell, did you have a comment?
Yeah,
or question?
just and I don't know what does the data show on that specific program. I think it's been kind of mixed, if I recall correctly.
We had some independent reviewers
Yeah,
looking at it, and I
okay.
can have Linda Darlingham
and
send you some information about 95% of the people that received
Right.
Apple grants completed their
Right.
5-year commitment.
Right. Right. And the Apple may be something we need to employ, but I think there's other things we need to look at too. And just maybe one question for the CSU. It's kind of it's a big hill to climb to get a teaching credentials. Have we looked at creating a teaching degree, maybe for a multiple subject, a K-6 level? Maybe you could respond to that. But also, there's something I think the CSU could do now, and I don't think it requires a lot more money. I think if they were to be rather entrepreneurial, they could employ this now. And some are. I know in Long Beach we've got an effort underway, and that is allowing students to start some teaching credential courses before they get their bachelor's. So maybe you could speak to what efforts are going on there to be more creative. So the first question is, should we look at a teaching degree? I don't think you'd want that for the single subject. I'll let you respond to that. And then also, what are the CSUs doing to be creative to get students in? And maybe you could complete most of your classes prior to graduating, then do your student teaching post 4-year bachelor's degree.
So one element that actually sort of bridges both those topics, a number of our campuses do offer, as I mentioned, integrated teacher education pathways, which really allow the student to sort of take a more blended approach, where they are taking some of what would traditionally be post-baccalaureate work as they progress into the upper division of their baccalaureate program, so as part of their regular bachelor's degree. While those programs have been developed and are sort of approved on a number of campuses, student participation and interest in those has not historically been as robust as sort of the traditional pathway. In some districts across the state, there are salary disadvantages for students that pursue one of those baccalaureate programs because they're entering the salary schedule with only a baccalaureate degree versus a baccalaureate plus or a baccalaureate plus post-bac work. And so that sort of follows them throughout the period. So there are some large districts where that is an impediment.
Explain that point again. I'm sorry.
So there,
you're going with a BA plus 30, which is pretty standard, BA plus 30, right?
There are districts that have a BA starting level as well. Again, recognizing sort of a variety of entry points.
But they get their units. At the end of the year, they go into the human resources and they say, look, I've got more units, I'll bump over.
So some programs are, as I said, a blended or integrated baccalaureate and teacher education program. So the student is actually graduating with a bachelor's degree and has no post-bac work yet, so no BA plus anything.
Yeah, but then they go do their student teaching. Or are you trying to say they do it inside the 4 year?
During that span, during the baccalaureate.
Inside the standard 4 year period?
It's actually 135, so it's not it's usually 4 plus 1 to get that. But in a number of areas of the state, that puts the student at a salary disadvantage to their peers that do the traditional pathway. So one of the recommendations or conversations that's happened is in those regions of the state, working with and through those school districts to try to eliminate that impediment. And it's some significant districts. For example, San Diego Unified. There is a variation for students that would enter with those
with only a bachelor's. You can enter with only a bachelor's.
It's a blended. So it blends both the baccalaureate work.
But it's a bachelor's plus a credential.
They are actually just graduating with a bachelor's, but they've done the coursework within their bachelor's, 135 units.
But have they done their student teaching yet? They have.
Yes.
Okay, and they're calling it a bachelor's.
Yes, it's an integrated. Do you want to jump in as well?
Do you see why I'm coming up with these questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So some institutions have both a BA and a minor in education, and they package those together. Someone can complete in 4 years all the requirements for their BA and all of the requirements, including student teaching, for their credential. Many of our private it's a lot. Many of our private institutions offer that pathway because another year of private tuition is pretty expensive. So they try to compete in this market by offering a package deal where you can complete all of it within 4 years. But what's on your transcript is that you have a baccalaureate degree and you have a teaching credential. You don't have any post-bac units, and that's where the salary schedules that track those units advantage or disadvantage particular types of graduates.
I guess it says a lot that a district would even have just a bachelor's column.
Right.
I mean,
well, and the vast majority
in a perfect world, they shouldn't even have that because.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Well, the vast majority of teachers in this state have been completing a bachelor's and then a next year of post program. So that's been the normative route, and I think salary schedules have grown up around that. But if we want to change the culture and provide fast track undergraduate types of programs, and the CSU has grown.
I'm not saying fast track. Because fast track, I don't want to lessen the quality either.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But what I mean is the ability to complete all of these requirements within the confines of a 4-year degree program.
Okay.
That's possible. But it may be disadvantageous until we change the culture.
But real quick, go ahead.
I have a comment to add on that. I was the last group through that was able to do it's sort of like a minor in education where you went 4 years, you did all your student teaching, you took all your education, you had a degree in geography or whatever, student teaching out in 4 years. But there wasn't that separate thing on the salary schedule. You came in equivalent because there wasn't a requirement that you had to go 5 years. You could get through in 4 provided you could accomplish all that. And that would take away, $15,000 in student loan debt.
Great. No, I get that. That's where I'm coming from. So again, I go back to my original question: what's the CSU doing? I mean, you say we have a bunch of programs. Are you guys proactive on this? You're saying, well, look at what our campuses are doing.
I guess too. Let me kind of interject, Mr. O'Donnell. You're doing something right now. We appreciate that. What more could we be doing? I know Ms. Bonilla has an idea that she's pushing through the legislative process, and so we're interested potentially putting up with a package of things to expand. So I don't want you to talk about what you are doing, but what can we do being better?
Well, I think as I said, those let me start with those types of blended programs that, again, are intended for a variety of reasons to get the more individuals into the teaching profession earlier. As I said, there are a number of those programs that are on the books but are not being actively taken advantage of by students. So I think in working through our local districts and having those conversations, that's an initial part. In trying to expand the number of residency programs that we have, and there are some models that were mentioned in the materials for today. There are a number of our campuses that in their local service areas are trying to expand those residency programs to get, again, more direct support and get students, in, as you mentioned, sort of into the classroom earlier. So those are, some of the types of examples, as well as to our conversation around cost, also trying to promote, the ways that students can make this as affordable as possible. That's a lot of partnership that we're working towards with financial aid offices, trying to expand that.
Let me make this easier. When you see Chancellor White, tell him this committee is very concerned and wants to know what the CSU is planning to do to be more proactive on this effort. And this is just a discussion that's, starting today. I don't expect you to have all the information today and be able to say, hey, everything that we're doing is completely perfect, because this is kind of an issue that we're just, attempting to tackle. But and why I focus on the CSU, because I think you're the perfect place to go to. Quite frankly, I don't think the UC is. They're not turning out the number of teaching credential candidates that the CSUs are. You guys should be the focus. We want to support you too. And I'm not ignorant to the fact that it might take more money. But again, what we're saying to you, I think today is, and I'm saying at least, is I want to see something more creative and what we can do. And it doesn't have to be all inside the 4 years. Maybe all the curriculum is covered inside the 4 years, and the student teaching is done, in that half of a fifth, or they do a full year. In Long Beach, they've got a program like that. We don't need to talk about all those programs as much as I think we need to see more of a proactive approach in this arena.
Well, if I may speak to one other element that I think we've had a number of, and we've had conversations about before, is a focus on reinstituting state-supported summer enrollment at our campuses. Many of our campuses had teacher programs that would allow students that are in teacher prep to either accelerate or start early in summer. And as we talked about previously, summer sessions were one of the first areas to get sort of dramatically cut during the toughest budget time. So I think we've seen, and our deans of our colleges of ed have really focused on the ability to increase the number of teachers if they could, again, support a more robust state-supported summer session. So we've looked at that as one strategy.
Okay, and that summer session would what kind of classes would be offered? Are we talking teacher credential class, or are we talking just general classes?
I think it need to be a combination of both. One is specifically, as I said, a lot of our traditional post-bac one-year teacher education programs have allowed teachers to begin those programs in the summer. That's often a good time for teacher or teacher candidates to be in that coursework. But again, as I said, one of the easiest, for lack of a better term, ways to preserve the traditional fall and spring terms was to cut summer, and that often disproportionately hurt our teacher education program. So that would be an area of focus.
Point well taken. Great. And what about the teaching degree?
At the baccalaureate?
Yeah.
So that is an area of exploration. As I said, we have programs today that are blended, and that includes is the CSU's approach to meeting the requirements for a baccalaureate degree and the expectations for CTC for teacher credentialing, and blending that into a program. Right now, as that process was worked through about a decade ago, that equated to about 135 semester units to get all that work packaged.
You said that, yeah. Okay, good. Okay.
So I just want to add one thing to that. Since about 1970, statute has prohibited candidates for a credential earning a degree in education. They must have a baccalaureate degree in a content area pursuant to Ed Code. That's a requirement. So we see education minors in many campuses. We see degrees that may be called education sciences, but there's a law that kind of stands as a roadblock to the initiative you might be considering. It just goes.
The legislature created that roadblock.
Okay. In 1970, it was post Sputnik, and Sputnik was a factor. So.
Okay. One more question. I'm sorry. You were born right about 7. A little bit before. Can I ask one more question? Yes. Yeah, it's a CTC question. With regard to BITSA, actually just beginning teacher support without that categorical is now folded into LCFF. So what mandates are on the district to provide new teacher support? I'm a new teacher. I walk into a classroom. Maybe they have the protocols in the district and they're funding it with the LCFF. I wish that it would be a separate funding stream because I think all teachers should receive that support. Are all teachers receiving that support at the district level when they go into a new job?
So it's currently there is no specific mandate that a district provide induction services. There is funding, however, and considerable funding. In fact, this year, $490 million was included in the budget to support local education agencies supporting teacher development. So the funding itself represents the opportunity. The requirement is on the teacher to complete 2 years of induction in order to clear their credential, and that's the way the law is set up right now, and the structures are set up. It is our understanding that the vast majority of teachers are receiving induction services. We've had in this state for more than 20 years a robust BITSA program and an infrastructure for that with 150 programs that reach into every single employing agency. So the access is there, the availability is there, the funding is there. The requirement is on the teacher. It is not on, strictly speaking, on the employer to provide it. So that's the way that the system is set up in terms of requirements.
Do we have any analysis that speak to the quality of those BITSA programs? Are they?
Well,
is one district's different than the others?
They all must be accredited. Therefore, they all must meet commission standards. And the standards are not abstract. The standards are very specific about selecting mentors and making sure they're trained and that they have protected time to provide mentoring services, that candidates have individualized plans that are really focused on their needs and their growth opportunities. There are very specific expectations in the standards. We make sure that all 150 of the programs we accredit are addressing those standards, and if they're not, then we hold them on some kind of exception and require them within 1 year in order to retain accreditation to maintain it. So that system's been working, and it establishes certainly at least a minimum level of expectation of quality. That said, there's variation across different districts. Some are providing full-time release for mentors. Some are providing part-time release for mentors, and they approach it differently based on the needs within their particular area.
Okay, and I just think for the committee's purposes, it's important to get teachers in the door, but we also have to keep them in the door, and that's where support comes in.
Absolutely.
And that's just as important, if not more.
We couldn't agree more.
So I appreciate your information on that.
Ms. Irwin.
Yeah, this is, I think, for CTC on the LAO list. One of the policies that was mentioned to address this issue is flexible credentialing, and we see, and for a long time have seen the shortage in math and science, and there's always talk of trying to attract mid-career professionals, engineers, chemists. A lot of them would be ready to switch. So what is the flexibility now in the credentialing for people that obviously have the background to teach, might need a little bit of training on how to teach, but don't want to spend the full year in the program to get a credential?
So that's a great question. The last time we had a big teacher shortage, more than a decade ago, as Dr. Shields pointed out, the commission really made an effort to make sure that we had robust pathways into teaching. The undergraduate preparation route is identified and specified in Ed Code for early deciders. The post-baccalaureate program, a one-year training program with student teaching, has been the most frequently used way, so that option is available for people with a BA who'd like to go back and earn a teaching credential through a student teaching-based program. We also have had for more than 40 or 50 years in this state a robust alternative certification program for people who meet requirements to become interns and serve as interns in training. They get some summer training prior to taking on a classroom as a teacher of record, but then they are in on-the-job training while they complete their credential requirements. So those are really the flex routes that we have within the structure of law and that we set standards for and provide for intended support and supervision for individuals and induction kinds of experiences for these individuals coming through. Other than that, an individual with a BA and a basic skills score can show up and get a substitute teacher credential and teach. And there are a variety of permits that are substandard, and as Dr. Shields pointed out, that's probably our largest growing sector at the moment. It's the sector we worry about because those individuals have not had preparation. They are not, in every case, providing adequate support or supervision while in the classroom, and yet they are the teacher of record for these students every single day. And that's of concern. So making sure we have adequate enrollment in the 3 primary routes to a credential is really critical. And the intern route, I would say, is of all the ways that you can be less than fully prepared and work in the classroom, that is probably our best option because it does have preparations on the job and it does have required support and supervision of this individual while they're learning to teach. Again, that's not optimal, but in a time of shortage, what do? We increase class size, we, bring in emergencies, and we, struggle forward.
So, how are any of these new programs, or has there been any recent flexibility? Because you're saying these programs have been in place for a while, and obviously it doesn't look like there's a big influx of math and science teachers. There's still a shortage there. So is there some thought about looking specifically in those areas and adding more pathways?
So you might want to think about how to target investment. If the Apple Forgivable Loan Program is authorized this year and funded, you might want to target specific areas of chronic shortage like math and science. We compete for math and science graduates to move into teaching. There has to be some incentive because that's not a large pool of undergraduates who are selecting that as a major. And if they are selecting it, many of them are moving into engineering and other fields and other professions where there's, maybe greater opportunity for salary and for other kinds of benefits. So if we want them in teaching, we have to go get them. And we have to make this an attractive pathway for them. And in truth, some of the research tells us that by the time someone spends 4 years in a classroom, they're either hooked or they're gone. So we need to bring them in. We need to find a way to compete appropriately and adequately within the teaching profession to bring those graduates into this profession.
And it's because there's so many options for young people. That's why it still seems there might be much more potential for mid-career people to switch.
Yes.
So that's the question is if enough is being done in those areas.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we have a few items that we're going to explore on this issue with our final budget. I wanted to ask about one. Certainly we have a teacher shortage, the numbers show. And also we know that there's an issue with diversity in many of our classrooms, that the teachers don't necessarily reflect the students that they're teaching. And there are some proposals, some promising ones. I think we're going to hear some in public comment. One that I've been looking at is the classified employee teacher program to get people who are classified workers in the school system already that maybe already have an AA degree to get in the pipeline. I know we had this program a few years ago, and it was defunded during the budget. Wondering if we think this is a promising opportunity as well.
We do think the paraprofessional, it used to be called the Paraprofessional Teacher Training Program, is a good investment. It does reach into local communities, it does reach into more diverse communities, and it does provide a pathway and support for individuals to move into teaching. It was successful when we did it previously, and we're encouraged to see it reemerging as a possible pathway to support.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, I think we're going to ask, I know people specifically want to talk about this in the public, so we're going to do 2 public comments today. So one right now on this kind of teacher issue, and then next we'll have the public comment on the miscellaneous Department of Education items. So if you could
say just
Yes,
one
sir.
thing. There was a question about the effectiveness of Apple and loan forgiveness versus scholarships, et cetera. We were asked this back in January by the Senate, and so we actually did a review of the literature on that. It's in your package. It's called How Effective Are Loan Forgiveness and Service Scholarships at Recruiting
So in a
Teachers.
nutshell, what's the answer? What is the effectiveness?
When they are sufficiently funded, that is, the amount of money is sufficient to incentivize, and that they're bureaucratically simple enough, they work.
Okay. And Okay. There we go. All right, we'll ask the public to line up in the middle, and if you can speak for 1 minute or less, that'd be great.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Debbie Look on behalf of State Superintendent of Public Instruction Tom Torlakson and sponsor of Senator Pavley's SB 62 in strong support of funding for the Apple program. Superintendent believes that addressing the teacher shortage is one of the most critical education issues before the legislature, and it's one of his top legislative priorities. We must develop the means to attract and retain a diverse pool of high-ability educators for all students, particularly in the high-needs fields and high-needs schools. There's a clear need for the state to make investments in programs such as Apple to encourage the development of a pool of qualified educators to meet the needs of all schools, not only those schools able to provide greater financial incentives to prospective teachers. So on behalf of the superintendent, I urge the committee to support the Apple program with ongoing funding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Erica Romero on behalf of the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities. AICCU represents 78 WASC-accredited private not-for-profit institutions. We enroll over half of the credentialing teachers and have provided 43% of all of California's credentialed teachers. Over the last year, AICCU's deans and directors of education have been meeting and discussing the teacher shortage and potential remedies. Although there has been a slight uptick in the number of teaching credentials issued in 14-15, the increase is minimal. After a few years of significant decline in enrollment, a quick survey of our programs early this year demonstrated a very small increase in enrollment. And the inability to meet district demand is real and we believe not short-lived. With this in mind, we stand eager to assist the governor, legislature, and CTC as you debate how to use your partners. AICCU Deans of Ed have created a white paper on the teacher shortage, which we will be delivering to your offices. In thinking this through, we urge you to consider multiple pathways, such as blended programs, traditional post-bac programs, intern programs, and the Apple program, which we believe leads to a more diverse pipeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Ron Rapp speaking on behalf of the California Federation of Teachers. We represent approximately 130,000 education professionals. We believe this is a #1 issue in the state of California, the teacher shortage issue. We don't believe that it's a market correction, and we believe that we need to take swift action to address the issue. As you know, there are a number of bills out there designed to address the issue. CFT is sponsoring one of those bills. Of course, we support that. We also support the Apple program as well as the BITSA program and a number of others. So we are willing to work with the legislature. Of course, it's going to cost money. So we're going to have to figure out the budget piece of this. But we encourage leaders in the state, policy leaders in the state to work together to help us solve this critical problem. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Isabel Garcia with the California Teachers Association. We think California's investment in its workforce is an imperative. We think recruiting talented and diverse teachers is critical so that every student has a caring, qualified, committed teacher. And we support reviving the Apple program and Senate Bill 62, and we also support many of the other options to address the teacher shortage. And with respect to the induction, because induction can cost up to $3,000, we don't think teachers should have to pay for their induction when they become new teachers. And while the majority of the districts are doing the right thing and paying for that, we would like to see that for everybody, because when the requirement was put on them to complete induction to clear their credential, it was a different time, and the state invested in the BITSA program. So with that, we appreciate your making this a priority.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We'll now proceed to the next section. California Department of Education State Standards Implementation. CDE State Standards Implementation. We're going to do like our teacher package again, looking at some one time. Sorry? We're going to do another teacher package again, probably at the end, looking at some of the one-time money. Do it for 3 years, so I'll make sure we sit down. Feels good.